Welcome everyone to another episode of Reimagining Cyber. Rob here, and today I'm joined by Kristina Walter, recently appointed as the director of NSA's Cybersecurity Collaboration Center, or the CCC. Kristina previously served as the head for NSA's Future Ready Workforce Initiative. Her roles as the strategist for the CCC and chief of Defense Industrial Base Cybersecurity helped shape the standards and operations of NSA's DIB services and the overall missions of the CCC. Welcome, Kristina. Very excited to have you here with us today. Any additional background you would like to share?
No, Rob, thank you for having me. I think you covered it. I'm excited to be here today.
Excellent. Looking forward to our conversation as well. So I guess this is kind of a homecoming for you because you obviously worked in the creation of the CCC. So I wanted to kind of get your basis of, what brought it to light back in the early stages, December 2020, kind of here's what it is, here's what it's all about, the mission, if you will, behind it, and what brought you back, right? Where do you look to go from here?
Yeah, sure. So great question. I think to start, it has been great to be back, but really where we came from, what kind of started the Collaboration Center was really the recognition that NSA has decades of being a combat support agency, securing military and leadership communications, as well as being an intelligence community entity. But when we think about really the threat landscape, almost all critical infrastructure in the defense industrial base is operated by industry partners. And so what we were finding was we had information that would be relevant to a partner that we wanted to share, and we really didn't have a mechanism to do that. So if we wanted to share intelligence about what we saw nation state actors doing when targeting systems or potentially intending to target systems, we would have to go through a third party, one of our interagency partners, to do that. And we found is we didn't get to have a really productive conversation in that space, which was both frustrating for, I think, the industry partner who would get really limited information and wasn't able to talk to the originating organization, but also didn't help us understand at all what the threat landscape was of what they were seeing on their networks. And so we recognized that the key to connecting all of those dots was partnership, and it was partnership with industry. And so we stood up in December of 2020, nothing like standing up a collaboration center in the middle of a pandemic.
Timing, yes.
So it was interesting timing. I think it was actually surprising how well it worked at the time, but really with a handful of partners, less than 10, really coming and saying, what would this look like to partner? And so we really wanted to move from, throwing an indicator of compromise over the fence to an industry partner and saying, go fish on your network, for lack of a better term, to see if you can figure out what this is, to really coming together and saying, here's what we see from a nation state foreign actor perspective. Tell us what you see targeting your network day in and day out so that we can really understand that threat together, better detect it faster, and really tailor mitigations that are critical for the defense industrial base. So the Collaboration Center is really centered around our role as a combat support agency in support of national security systems, which are classified systems or systems critical to military communications, as well as the defense industrial base. But we knew that we had to partner with the entire ecosystem of the defense industrial base, from the internet service provider, the cloud provider, the cybersecurity companies, the endpoint detection companies, to those big defense contractors. Everybody has really robust cybersecurity teams in that space. And when we can partner together, we can better detect the activity to mitigate against it. That was the vision when we stood up.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, collaboration, especially in cyber, is so critical. I think we've had, let's say, some slight issues in the past between kind of that private and public collaboration. I think it's definitely getting better. We've had some good discussions on that very topic here in the past. I wanted to kind of get a little deeper onto some of the very kind of focused strategic initiatives that the CCC is focused on. Again, you discussed it, ranging from, collaboration and partnerships, offering security services, which I think is, really interesting. I want to get a little bit of background on that. Tie that back into, some of the different agreements you have in place with DoD contractors. And so maybe you can provide a little bit of the kind of background on the services that CCC offers, the values you're seeing kind of around that, and just kind of let the audience know a little bit more about it.
Yeah. So, I mentioned the defense industrial base is where we're really focused. But I think when most people think of DIB, they think of, the large defense contractors that are building, the fighter jet or
Sure.
the biggest weapons platforms. But really, we think of it as, there's hundreds of thousands of companies in the defense industrial base, and there are significantly a lot of small businesses that really are really good at making that one part for the widget that goes into the weapons platform. But
Mhm.
that's all they're trying to do. They're not trying to build these robust cybersecurity programs. They don't have an in-house cybersecurity team, and they really struggle to defend themselves. And so in order to do business with the department, there's compliance-based approaches for, contractual standards for what you have to do from a cybersecurity perspective. But we took a slightly different approach in coordination with the department. And we said, we can partner with those large defense contractors with robust cybersecurity teams. We can partner with the big service providers. But really, when we talk about those critical suppliers as we illuminate DoD supply chains, how could we just really be forward leaning and offer them free cybersecurity services to protect them? And so what we did is we took what we know about nation state actors and how they like to target networks. So one of the attack vectors is DNS, domain name system. It is essentially the phone book of the internet. And so we know that malicious actors can use that to reroute traffic to known malicious sites. They can download malware that way. And it's just an attack vector. Command and control of malware happens through DNS. It's an attack vector that is frequently used to target companies. And so there's many providers of protective DNS, which essentially, if you're trying to access a website, it will run it through a threat feed to say, this is known good or this is known bad. If it's bad, it won't let you get there. And so ran a pilot about 4 years ago where we said, would companies be interested in this free service that we know would take care of a huge attack vector that targets small businesses? And found that, yes, it was a really effective program. And so we essentially have a commercial provider that gives this service out to companies. They deal with that commercial provider, but on the back end, NSA is feeding in our unique insights into the service. So domains that we know are bad, that can go in additional blocking for the service to make it more effective for the companies enrolled. And so that program has about 1,000 companies enrolled in it to date. And it's blocked 7 billion malicious domains since we started it. About 50 million of those are unique to NSA derived indicators that we have fed into the service. So this is not a company that has to action technical information that NSA is sending to them. We know that they are prioritizing doing business with the department and don't have resources to understand and action our information. So this is a service that's available that will just make sure that they cannot navigate to known malicious sites that would
Right.
try to deliver malicious activity. Some of the other services we have or attack surface management. So again, we know major attack vector is unpatched systems, outdated software. So what we do is we try to help a company understand, do you know that this is internet facing? Here are your assets that are exposed to the open internet. And this is an old version of software that you're running here, or you need to patch this system. What we find is they want prioritization because they have limited resources that they're trying to address. So we can say, hey, we know nation state actors are targeting this known vulnerability and you are running it on this particular portion of your network. We recommend that you patch it, and they can take action on it quickly to try to mitigate that. So that's our second service, is attack surface management. Threat intelligence collaboration is our third one. So really just how do we set up a communications channel with you and your teams so that if you get a suspicious email or you don't understand something you're seeing in your logs, you have a place where you can come in and leverage our technical expertise for us to tell you, here's what you should dig further. Here's the remediation we think you should take if you find something that's interesting. And so those were really to address some of the common attack vectors we see. And the Department of Defense said this is really a worthwhile investment for us to fund this program through NSA for our defense contractors to really be part of their holistic cybersecurity plan.
I think it's great. It's part of that whole secure ecosystem based approach, right? Again, as you said, a lot of these smaller players, but critical, right, providers aren't typically looking at, nor are they able to, in many cases, kind of fund it for themselves. So this is
Yeah.
a great approach to obviously kind of, again, secure the ecosystem as you discussed. I'd like to get I know we talked about this before, just ensure, right, that it's okay to share, but there was a great example, kind of public information, some of the tidbits back in the early months of 2022 with Viasat. But I think it was just such a great example of the value of what's actually been created in that collaboration effort that, again, you and the team have put forth with the CCC and the providers and partnerships you have. Maybe you can share a little bit about kind of that example of whatever you can say that transpired. Most importantly, though, the outcomes relative to that partnership being put in place.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so we don't talk about our partnerships openly. We really defer that to the company. In this particular case, Viasat had worked with us when they experienced their SATCOM outage over in Ukraine, and we had an existing partnership with them. We support, any provider to the Department of Defense. That's really our area. And so in this particular case, they invited us at Black Hat to talk about what we were able to do. And so just operational on how we collaborate together and try to really understand what's happening. And so, when I think at the Black Hat presentation, Mark, the CISO, put up a picture of, reaching out to me on the morning of February 24th and asking for a meeting. And we got on the call, I think, within 10 minutes of that particular
Right.
message.
I remember seeing that. Yeah.
To say, what's going on. And, they had ruled out, administrative error, and they knew that this was malicious activity. And so, from a US government perspective, we really wanted to understand, what happened, whether other similar networks would be vulnerable to what happened, and really understand how we could share out mitigation guidance that would be relevant. And so this really launched daily collaboration from a technical perspective. They were trying to understand what happened so that they could restore service to their customers, and we were trying to understand who was behind the attack and how could we publish mitigation guidance. And so really that sharing of technical information helped us, bring our VSAT experts to the discussion and say, here's what we've seen happen in the past, here's how we recommend you mitigate against that, and our understanding of Russian actors and what they do and the tactics, techniques, and procedures that they follow, where we could together figure out who did this and how we could mitigate it. And then we were able to take what we found through that collaboration and share those mitigation guidance out with the broader community. So anybody else who would perhaps be susceptible to similar wiper malware attacks had the malware to detect it and signature it, and so that they could prevent it if there were attempts to use similar malware other places. So that was really our goal, was mitigate at scale based off what we learned through that analytic collaboration, while they could work to restore their customer networks.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things to call out here. One is the actual building the relationship and collaboration of the partnership ahead of time. Right? We always talk about, when you're in it is not the time to actually start reaching out and trying to connect with people. Right? That trust has to be established way earlier. So I think, of course, that's part of this collaboration effort that you offer up as part of the partnership services. And then again, the other aspect of, again, is sharing that out with the greater community. Yeah. Is really, again, very, very beneficial. So that joint partnership in how you came together with Viasat to ultimately, go through and help one another out in the greater community, prime example of some of the successes here.
Yeah, I think what we said that day is you can't surge trust in a crisis. If
Absolutely.
We had not had that established relationship, he wouldn't have known who to call. And I think we get questions a lot because, NSA has the Cybersecurity Collaboration Center. We have our CISA colleagues. We have our FBI colleagues. One of the other major components of that was making sure that they were informed on what was happening so that they could tell their constituents. So we work really well as a community to make sure that that partner can focus on restoring their networks, but we can make sure that as a US government, we know we all have a different aperture. We all have access to different information that could be useful. And so it's helpful to really practice that before a crisis happens so that you know kind of who to call when something's happening and how you can support each other.
Yeah, 100%. Now, again, you were at the onset of establishing the CCC. You kind of stepped away into focus in that area, and now you've recently come back. I want to talk about what are some of the things that you're excited about as far as evolving the CCC? What's the future state of it? Just maybe it's additional services capabilities. Just kind of what do you see? What's your vision?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I'll start with kind of what I reflected on as to over the time that I was away, in coming back. Just the sheer growth in the number of partnerships was significant. When I left, and I was only gone for really about 18 months running the Future Ready Workforce Initiative, but we moved from about 200 partners to, over 1,000 in that time. Mostly through those free cybersecurity service offerings, but really understanding how much growth happened. We established the AI Security Center underneath the Cybersecurity Collaboration Center. That also happened over the last year. And so my focus is really taking what we've learned about how to move from very transactional collaboration to true operational collaboration, and using that to make sure that we are equipping industry to outmaneuver these nation state actors. We've seen Director Rice said very publicly, the PRC cyber army is more than all of the US government and our Five Eyes combined. And so through partnership is the only way that we're really going to get after this problem. And so I think over the last year, to see what we've done with our interagency partners and with industry related to tracking of PRC obfuscation networks, where they are compromising all this US infrastructure to target from and hide their activities,
Mhm.
we've been able to partner to really illuminate that and to put out a public cybersecurity advisory related to the Volt Typhoon activity a year ago now. That's been huge. And for companies to come in to either us or their sector risk management agency and say, I found this activity because of the work that you all have put out, that's significant. And so, really, how do we make sure we're focusing on operationalizing our intelligence with our partners so that they can protect their customers, they can protect their platforms, and they can take action to really defend national security? That's my focus as we move forward. When we talk about the services, we are looking at what is that suite of services that would be really beneficial to these small businesses. We still know that basic cyber hygiene is really the first line of defense. And there are some things that we should expect companies to know, and there's some things that we shouldn't, depending on how sophisticated the
Mhm.
activity is. And
Right.
so we are looking at what are the additional service offerings that we could put out there. We
Mhm.
did an autonomous penetration testing pilot where we helped companies run internal penetration testings and identify vulnerabilities. That we're moving to a full service offering now. So companies can enroll in that to really understand from a internal network perspective where there might be vulnerabilities and how to remediate those. So we're always looking to expand the service offerings with high quality services and really get after this massive problem through partnerships are my goal.
Yeah, that's all great. I think again, the fact that you're continuing to evolve those service offerings because they are so critical, as we talked about before, for that ecosystem, that secure ecosystem, if you will, and that's a really interesting area. I mean, even an example just thrown out there where we see constantly the need for MFA because it becomes the first step, and it's
Yeah.
like that's just basic hygiene stuff. So obviously, if in the future there's a service offering there, great to offer that up. I don't want to lose sight though of again the 18 months, right? There's a lot of great work that you went off to do. And I wanted you to kind of, if you don't mind, use the platform here to also share your work with the NSA's Future Ready Workforce Initiative, because it's so critical to obviously what we
Yeah.
need going forward. So maybe just a little bit of the background of where you kind of took it and where you see it going, even
Yeah.
since you've departed.
Yeah, thank you for asking about that. So, yeah, the Future Ready Workforce Initiative was really us looking at the changing generations of our workforce. We are seeing, that big red blob that everybody's been talking about for several years with the baby boomers, exiting the workforce. We're experiencing that just like anybody else. There's competition for talent unlike anything we've ever seen before. I know that coming from the Collaboration Center, where pretty much every industry partner we work with has a former NSA at it, which is good because we know that they can understand our language and their cybersecurity talent, but we're really competing in a space that we haven't had to before. And I think we were really looking at post-COVID norms. You and I are on a Zoom call today.
Mhm.
The National Security Agency doesn't have a lot of telework options when you think about working in a classified environment. And so we wanted to really rapidly look at how could we pilot initiatives in a workforce sense that would rapidly improve the experiences of our existing employees and all of our new employees coming in. And so we really looked at a couple things. The first thing we did was we established an NSA alumni program. Our folks are out everywhere. How do we stay in touch with them? How do we help them come back if they're interested? I think that 30-year career model that we've thought of, you stay in government service for 30 years and you retire, that just doesn't exist anymore. And so how do we make it easier for folks to move in and out of different agencies and private sector? So our alumni program was really designed to keep us connected to them. We revamped entirely the way we onboarded folks into the agency. So when you come in, do you understand what you became a part of and what our work is and what our mission is and all the opportunities here so that you can understand what you joined and what we expect of folks coming into the intelligence community. We looked at hybrid work really as a community approach of how, as an intelligence community and defense enterprise, could we leverage each other's spaces to give our employees some commute relief when we're
Mhm.
talking about, the congested area that we're in Maryland and DC. And the final focus area was really in our leadership curriculum. We are known for our technical talent. We have a lot of steps and criteria for folks to move up in technical fields. And really, we wanted to make leadership the same, where we're building incredible leaders at the National Security Agency that can really lead us through problems that we don't even know will exist yet with how fast the world is evolving. And so we made a lot of progress over 18 months. That initiative does continue. There's a new lead who's named, who's working with General Hawk on what they want to focus on moving forward. So I'm excited to watch what they will do while
Mhm.
getting to come back and truly take on what I thought when I started here, it was kind of a once in a career experience when I was here before. So getting to come back now and lead it has really just been incredibly rewarding for me. And I'm just excited with where we'll go.
Yeah, excellent. Now, where can the audience go if they want to learn more about the CCC and the different service offerings and educate themselves better?
Yeah, they could go to nsa.gov/cybersecurity collaboration center. So on our website, we have an incredible amount of resources from public cybersecurity advisories, which is really unique for the National Security Agency. Just since we stood up, we've released over 70 public unclassified advisories that give you different recommendations based off what we see nation state actors doing. They give you recommendations on how to secure your networks. And so all of that information is there. You can go to the Collaboration Center website as part of that at nsa.gov, and you can ask for our services. Our services are for anybody who has an active DoD contract or subcontract. And so anybody who's doing business with the department is eligible for those free services. And you can learn about our workforce initiatives there too, or if you're interested in employment, that's all on nsa.gov.
Perfect. Kristina, thank you so much for coming on, sharing where you started with the CCC, left, okay, another great initiative there, and then came back. And also, again, the services that are being offered, building a better secure ecosystem, as well as what you're thinking about delivering going forward. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing that with us as a whole.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. This has been great. It's great to be back. So excited to continue partnership moving forward.
Great. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Hello, producer Ben here, and we at Reimagining Cyber would just like to thank you for making the podcast one of the 5% of most popular podcasts in the world, according to the folks at Listen Notes. And the main reason behind that is the great guests that we get on the show, such as Kristina, who we've just heard from. And next week, we've got another first-class booking. Cybersecurity expert Eric O'Neill, a former FBI counterintelligence operative who helped capture the most notorious spy in American history, Robert Hanssen. Eric was also the subject of a Hollywood film starring Chris Cooper and is the author of Grey Day, My Undercover Mission to Expose America's First Cyber Spy. Here's a taste of what you can expect.
My background in the FBI was to be an FBI ghost. So my job was to go undercover. I was fully undercover my entire career. The Hanssen case was unique in that I was still undercover just as myself. I wasn't even known by my name throughout most of the FBI. I had a code name that was used to refer to me. That's how deep cover I was. And the majority of what I did was counterintelligence tactics that are taught in the FBI. I had to learn the tradecraft of all my adversaries. And when you work in Washington, D.C., which is the espionage capital of the world, we call it the spy capital of the world. I mean, everyone is here, everybody's spying on the US, and they're all spying on each other because every country has some presence in Washington, D.C. And my squad would run around trying to track all of them. So in order to do that, in counterintelligence, you have to know how to think like a spy. And then you have to learn how to act like a spy hunter, how to defeat all of the intelligence goals of your adversary.
Eric's also going to be talking about the evolution of cyber espionage and AI and counter-surveillance in cybersecurity. So do subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcasts, and you'll be able to listen as soon as the episode becomes available.